Hello, Internet. This is not Open Source Live August edition, but this is going to be a new type of video where I'll go over a project I've done and some of the learnings and my thinking throughout it. And I thought it's just so many things I have learned while doing it and applied, and I think it's just a great thing to share. I think it will take 10 to 15 minutes. Yeah, so let's go over it, some new type of video. So the project was called Blog MCP, where I would take blogs and we'll talk about it. Yeah, so review. So the structure will be, I'll talk about the product and what I was thinking it will going to be, then what was kind of the essence of the idea, then how I try to apply some scoping to it to get rid of the parts which would not be that useful, but keep the parts which are kind of the essence and test those. Then I would talk about what are the main risks I saw, and then kind of the MVP I built it out, or what I was presuming to be the cheapest decisive test for whether to invest more in the project or not, and then how kind of I did analysis of the MVP and what I decided to do further, and a bunch of really cool learnings I did. So we'll start with the product. So basically, the idea was to take popular blogs. Let's say we talk about Paul Graham essays, we talk Tyler Cowen, we talk Acquired, All In, Dwarkesh, and take those essays or those blogs and so on, then basically connect them to LLMs. So LLMs can give you accurate answers with specific quotes and references. So let's say you take Huberman and you want to find out some question about health, but you want to make sure it's from Huberman because you trust Huberman and you think he's doing enough search. And if you just randomly ask, let's say for advice for a student when they're in university, if you ask it to, just randomly to ChatGPT, it will give you at best mediocre results. But if you ask it and you connect it to, let's say, Marginal Revolution or a Paul Graham essay, you'll get like a remarkable answer that should be taken seriously. So I was like, well, how can we do it so we can get chatbots that get the necessary information from blogs and can answer with accurate information to that. And so that was the idea. And if we talk about how I was thinking of scoping it, first I was thinking of basically doing a front-end website, and I also saw that type of work being done with of McKay. I'm not sure if I first saw it with McKay and then decided to build it, or the other way around. Probably the other way around, and I saw that McKay built it, and I was like, well, okay. But the idea was that I'll make a front-end website, let's say, that just looks like Paul Graham. I will connect the LLM somehow with all of the Paul Graham's essays, and basically I would make LLM talk like Paul Graham. So an example would be so my first thinking was to do a front end, design it like Paul Graham's essay website, and I decided to first try with Paul Graham, and then I realized that I had no need to do that and I could just do MCP. But for the sake of showing how it looks like, we'll go over here. So this is Framer. So this is kind of what I used to try to build it right away. Framer is just a faster way to make websites. It's like Figma, but on steroids, and it works for building websites. So this was kind of, I think, a year and a half ago. If we try to, we can try to publish it. That was a long time ago. So basically, that's how I saw it. So basically, I copied. This is not on Paul's website, but that's fine. Basically, I copied, like, this is an image with pixel to pixel perfect links and everything. Here you can see the picture. So the website is pixel to pixel correct as Paul's website. And here I tried to make it in the same style, but it was a bit hard. So I arrived at this kind of GPT. So just like another thing that Paul could have. And so what would happen, you'd have here the same, and let's say we go to, say, essays, just to compare it, how it looks like. I think you can see it's, let's make it 100, right? I think you can see it's pretty close. It's not exactly 1-to-1, but it's maybe if we do HP, no, right? Hackers and painters, definitely not home. Yeah, I think this might be also a good comparison. Yeah, well, actually, it's off. Here was the home. Well, okay, it was the email. Oh, that's a new thing. Well, all right, it wasn't here. So basically, try to copy Paul's website, but make it a GPT, right? So what I'll do is, and this is kind of amazing front end design. I'll first ask the user to give their OpenAI API key, and of course I'll have to handle it and make it safe and so on. And then user could prompt with the OpenAI API key questions and get answers based on Paul's essays, and they would kind of pop like this as a reference. So very similar to what Perplexity, let's say, does, but specifically for the blog. So let's say question could be what great founders do before they start a startup, and here we have some type of answer with the references from the essays, right? So the problem with this type of product, I thought, is that first of all, I cannot provide my own OpenAI API key because it will cost infinite amount of money. And so I need to take it from the user and I need to make it very simple. And what I'm trying to do here is to give like kind of a direct quote. Oh, let's not show my API keys. Direct quote to the API settings where you find the API, OpenAI API settings where you find the key. And then once they do that, then they can do a question of this kind and prompt it, and it will look exactly like Paul Graham's essay, and it will kind of pop one by one as if Paul is writing essay to you. So I thought this was a beautiful design solution, and I really was liking it. But the point was that I had to actually, implement the backend and do the thing. And also another example I wanted to show of the ingenious design solutions, ease of acquired GPT. Let me see. Basically, the same thing can be applied to acquired, so why not? Let's also publish it. You can also see how long ago it was, I assume. Yeah, more than a year ago. I hope I'm not showing anything remarkably secretive or important information. Yeah, so you see this beautiful how it pops up, and you have acquired GPT. And you see, yeah, GPT no, but acquired, you can go to acquired. Every story has a question. They have this, I think every business has a story or something like this, but it's just playing with this. Every story has a question, and a question can be, what deals skyrocketed Kate's career? Well designed, everything is crafted. It's amazing. I like it. And every company has a story, yeah. And you can see it kind of pops nicely, one by one, slowly. Yeah, so I really like those designs. The point is you have to also do the back end, and that's where we get back to the product. So basically, I was thinking front end, and we designed that for each block specifically. Marginal Revolution, it would look just like Tyler's website, but we would just make it just like in the Pulse way, where it looks very bare bones. For Acquired, there is no specific way they have the website, so we'll do it slightly different way. And I basically let that idea cook for a year. Then I stopped doing web development, so I kind of stopped being interested in it. And I was like, I was pretty upset because it was such a great idea as a coding exercise, and it was more than like 1.5 years ago, so it was a pretty long time. And about how amazing that is. And sadly, I was like, fuck, I'm not doing web development, so I can't do this type of project. And I specifically was waiting for a while where I was like, I had this idea, and then I was like, well, actually, let me actually become a good web developer. And then I can publish it, and then I can get, all the good stuff that comes with doing something useful for the community, and actually already have some web development skill that I can show for. But we'll talk about that details more. But then as I was thinking back just 2 weeks ago, or like literally, I think 6 days ago, to be honest, about that idea, I realized actually how big of an opportunity that is. As in, you can do this for a bunch of websites, for a bunch of very popular blogs. It will not be, the most used thing ever, but you could at least get some engagement from top people in the kind of circles. I'm interested in the top thought leaders, and you could do something useful for them. It's an amazing way to practice, let's say, some of your skills as software engineering or machine learning, web development if you do front end. And I thought this amazing project. And why just not do it for the sake of getting the network, helping the intellectual, the thought leaders, and just acquiring more career capital and a cool type of project to show for. So it would be easier to raise fellowships and move to US, and so everything becomes easier as you have easier time getting the emails for O1 and so on. Then I talked with Elias about it, and he kind of was like, yeah, you can do an MCP. And I was like, oh, well, I think that's a significant improvement, because all the headache I was worried about is that for each block, you have to design this front end. And I was like, well, I don't want to do that because I'm not interested in doing web development now. So that's a big headache, but maybe I can push through it and just get it done because, it's such a good opportunity. And I was like, oh, you can do MCP. That's perfect, because I don't have to think, like it's basically was an amazing scoping mechanism for the project, because it got rid of a lot of headache. I didn't have to design the front end. I didn't have to take care of the API keys. And those are two huge risks for the whole project, making it much more stinky than it should be. And realize I can do MCP, and that will be a great way to learn just machine learning engineering, just general software engineering related to LLMs. And I was like very happy about the scoping of the project. So that's how we arrived at the product. Then we'll have to talk about main risks that I saw, and this is specifically from my RemNote, from my note-taking system. So I'm thinking, basically, I think I see there are a few risks if I try to implement it. And what I was specifically trying to do, because I read ShapeUp and I really liked their phrasing with the project scoping, with how you actually vet the projects, how much you do research beforehand. And I really wanted, I think this was a remarkable project where I kind of hit a lot of those points and actually felt them through and tested them and saw how much more efficient they are and how much they're amazing. And so I was going from, okay, I'm not sure if I should spend like 2 to 4 weeks and, scraping data from a bunch of blocks, then putting them in. I'll talk about how exactly it works in a second, then connecting them to LLMs, doing the front end for them. Then I was like, oh, okay, MCP is easier. I need to still scrape from maybe 12 blocks and so on, connect them to LLMs, but they can now talk nicely and you can connect it to Claude and so on. And I thought, okay, this is worth at least exploring as a project. Let me invest a bit more time and find out a bit more about its main risks. So I was like, okay, let's write down main risks. Thanks to Vinod Koshla, right? Basically, the first one was that it just doesn't work that well. So basically, I can't find the proper way to give information to Claude. And we'll talk about the thing I was worried about, or that it just won't be that much better than just doing a Perplexity or ChatGPT web search or Claude web search and so on, and it'll give plus minus the same answers. The other one was that it is illegal because you can't scrape the blocks. And I thought, well, if I do all of that and I get some responses and the guy literally tries to sue me, that would still be to some extent a win. It's like, okay, I've been trying to be sued by him, and that's pretty cool. And the last one is just that I do all this work, it works, but it just doesn't blow up, right? It just doesn't get any traction. It just doesn't, it's not a thing on Twitter. And then I thought, okay, so now we have to think about how to kill those risks. And I think, we'll just talk through. So basically, with checking if it's illegal or not, you can just search. It seems reasonably legal as long as the person doesn't have a paywall on their website. So I was like, okay, great. Then it just won't blow up. Basically, the only way to test that is actually do the thing and send it on Twitter and see if it blow ups or not. And the first risk is, for me, seemed that you just have to build some minimal viable product, make it work, and see whether it works or not. 1 second. And now I'll give you the demo of the product and the MVP that I've built in VS Code. Or I think it's a better say, it was perfectly vibe coded. It surprisingly worked well. I spent like 2 days, and I think what was the essence is that I had to figure out how to give the right information to the LLM of where the error is so it can fix it. And I think that was a big thing of trying to understand how vibe coding works. And you can see there are a lot of tests here. So I had to understand how MPPs work and MCPs and so on. Anyways, I vibe coded it in probably around 1.5, 2 days. So I was pretty happy because it's actually working. I think this is an amazing pace, to be honest, that I could have done something that in 1.5 to 2 days, do something like this that actually works and does pretty much exactly what I want to in the MVP style. Like there's nothing I scoped more. This is exactly the version I wanted, and it fucking works. And it took only 2 days. I presume if not vibe coded, this would take maybe at least 14 to 20 days. So it would be a lot of time. And the amount of time I've saved on, of course, I cannot probably just, this is not production ready. Millions will probably, using this will be very clunky and probably they can't do it. So, but it's still an extremely fast way to do MVPs. And so vibe coding is pretty powerful. And I was kind of neglecting it a lot and just saying it's all kind of Twitter hype and bullshit. But I've saved myself a lot of days here, and it's kind of works. So it's yeah, there is of course some limitations, but yet still we can acknowledge that this is genuinely improvement, right? And genuine, I mean, it's fucking progress. So let's talk about MVP. Basically, what happens is that I just apply some RAG, and I think I saw this how it was applied with McKay, where he did like a 2-hour tutorial of how it works. Basically, how RAGs work. You take some text. So he scraped all the text of Paul Graham, and I did it, 1 year ago, and I was trying to make it work, and I kind of made it work with his tutorial, and I already had all the scraped information of Paul Graham. And basically, you scrape all the essays, then you chunk them in, let's say, 200 tokens chunk. Then you put those chunk throughout OpenAI embedding, so it becomes some vector for which we can do semantic search and actually kind of search which, based on the query of the user, which paragraphs are the closest in meaning, which can be used. Then we give, let's say, we search. So what happens? User gives the query. We embed that query in the vector. Then we compare that vector with all our vectors in the database on paragraphs, and then we choose the 5 closest one, or 10, doesn't matter. We give 5 closest ones. Then we give it to the LLM as an additional message. So we say it's just more context. We say give an answer as if you were Paul Graham based to that user's query, and take into account, let's say, these 5 paragraphs as an additional context to give them like more accurate results. And we take this big prompt and we give it to the LLM, and it produces a better result. So that's how RAGs work, and that's how it was implemented here. That's how it was implemented by McKay and how I learned it. And so I already had all the scraped and chunk data like 1 year ago from Paul Graham. I connected it to Supabase, and then I just vibe coded it the rest here. And so it actually works. That's the surprising shit about it. Let me check the timing, because there's a lot of explanation here. This definitely won't be, it's going to be a clean 30-minute video. Well, this is what it is. So let's say we ask, well, let's make it bigger, right? Yeah. What would Paul Graham say about MVPs, right? And then what happens? It does, for some reason, 3 searches. Well, don't ask the MVP thing, but it's, again, good enough, right? The vibe coded thing. But again, it's good enough, so we just keep on rolling. It searches through the Paul Graham's essay, and it does 1 search. And you can see here are the things, the paragraphs they cite, and we can see the similarity score. Pretty well made. Pretty well vibe coded it. And yeah, it does. Then it does another query that's like, okay, let's try this, and then it also collects it. So it does it 3 times for some reason, and then it actually gives the answer with the quote, and it says, and these are good answers, right? So nothing wrong with them. Get something in front of you as quickly as possible. Here's the right quote. The initial version is primarily the conversation. Okay, I don't know about that one, but I guess that's what he said. Don't overthink the first version. Build a small useful subset. Yeah. I think maybe a better, also good quote would be, for instance, tell me what would Paul Graham recommend during university, give concrete codes. So again, does 3 searches, then focus on your own projects and programming. Kind of what we're doing here, learn by doing, not just studying. Very good at programming, trickling conventional education is secondary, it's just your day job, and so on. So all these great answers. So great answer. It's exactly kind of what I wanted it to do. So we're very happy with the type of answers it was producing. Now we get to the back to our slides and kind of trying to keep the clear thinking thing. Yeah, here's the big VS code of saying we're doing a demo. Basically we kind of talk about cheapest decisive test, right? So we had to test, so the MVP was supposed to test those 2 main risks. Either I don't know how to give properly information to Claude or to a chatbot, because I was also thinking before I can just, make a very big resource with all the text Paul Graham ever written and just be like, go find something. Vectors work, of course, better. And it's just amazing that you can do math on meaning of the text. Like, it's just such a scientific breakthrough. It's crazy. I want to spend some time maybe understanding it one day, but it's just amazing, right? You can do the math on it. That's just crazy. And yeah, and the main risk was that it's just not that much better than Perplexity or LM search. So then I just did a Perplexity search. Let's see. Yeah, well, I kind of used it from the acquired what deal skyrocketed Gates' career. I do not think this is such a great answer because it did not reference acquired podcasts, but it's still a correct answer, kind of. So, anyways, let me see. Okay, let's just copy the question from here and just see, how is the answer different. So I'll say I like the university question much better. Just trying to fix. Here's things I'm asking it to fix, to connect. Okay. So, well, I'll just remove that. Okay. Boom. Quick search. Well, I do not see him making references from. Well, okay, that's not such a great answer, but it's still a good answer. Well, basically, it kind of gives the same answer. They'll become very good at programming, work on hard problems, find, learn. And here's the quotes. It gives just one undergraduation link to the article, but I do want to find maybe. 9 hours ago. Let's go. Yeah, this is the answer I saw when I did exactly the same query. So I don't know what's the difference, but that's even better. I think that's a much better answer. Specific, figure out what you truly like. Amazing quote from one of the essays. Whoop. Then work on hard problems. Okay, same essay. Uh-oh. No, different essay. Same essay. Okay, not that many essays actually. I mean, mine is doing better. Okay, I didn't know. it's mine is citing a bit more essays, which I guess is a kind of good thing. Undergraduation hackers, how to start. Yeah, undergraduation is just an important essay. But anyways, well, the difference is it's kind of a good enough answer. Well, Peter Thiel says 10x. I mean, it doesn't like 10x maybe for a company. And the problem has to be big enough. Blah blah blah. But this is just a good coding project, so it doesn't have to be 10x. The point is, it's not even like 1.5x. It's like maybe okay. If I previously would say it was like exactly the same, maybe I can say it's like 10% better, maybe 20% better max. And it's kind of a problem. This is not just good enough. And yeah, so I was kind of, when I did the Perplexity search and tried to compare it, I realized, oh shit, Perplexity is pretty good at being a rag of the whole internet. And yeah, and we kind of come back to what is the kind of the main kind of purpose of this review is that, well, first of all, I realized that Perplexity literally just works as like being basically a rag over the whole internet. And the same goes for ChatGPT and Claude. And I did the same query search for ChatGPT and Claude and also gave a very good answer. So it was literally quoting the same shit as my lovely MCP server, as my lovely blog MCP. And yeah, and so it basically decisively, we have a decisive criticism for the project that's just not that much better than Perplexity. So we don't work on it. So it kills the whole project. And here we want to get to the learnings and just kind of talk about why I've been so nice about the project. But basically, this whole thing happened over the course of like 2-3 days. And I think I was just moving with amazing for myself speed and testing. And I was really proud of myself because I was actually applying. I was not, doing a 1 month test of designing the front end and so on, and then spending 6 months on learning how to do front end and so on, right? So very long iteration cycles. This was a very fast iteration. Like 3 days is really fast for me. and we went to MVP, like actual shit working. The learning is that I could have known that it just won't that work that much better than Perplexity by just doing a Perplexity search. So it's like I didn't have to build an MVP whatsoever. Like I could have just done research and asked for essays and references, and it would give me this kind of an answer, and I would be like, shit, I don't think there is much better to do. And I would just be like, well, I don't see a 10x here, so fuck it, we're not doing it. So I mean, this perplexity search takes like a minute, 2 minutes, and I spend around 20 hours working on the MVP. So 20 by 60, that's 1,200 minutes. Divide by 2 or 1 minute. So this is like 600 times fast. There's 600x or 1,200x faster decisive test, and that's kind of this is pretty funny. Let's see how time goes. Yeah, we have still. Yeah, it was a pretty funny learning to understand that there's just so much room for making smart, decisive tests, and it's just so important to get those tests right. This is like huge amount of value is in getting the test right and being explicit that you're doing those tests, and there are faster ways to do that. And it's good that I did not spend 2 weeks on it, but I could have spent a minute on it, not 20 hours. But still, 20 hours is a much better improvement than a month or 2 weeks spending on it. And here are a few important learnings that I wanted to talk about. So first is that basically I realized that Vinod Khosla always talks about how you want to kill the main risks and you want to fail as fast as possible. And then they fucking finally connected it, right? You want to name what is the main risks of the project, and the cheapest decisive test should be exactly about that, the main risk of the option. So here, we can say all of them are kind of decisive. If the project fails on each one, the whole project fails everywhere. Basically, we can very quickly test whether it's legal or not. So that's a very cheap decisive test. If Perplexity says you cannot scrape, it's illegal, you'll go to jail, okay, we're not doing the project. There's no that fast way to test it on the whether it blows up on Twitter, but there is a very fast way to test if it's just much better than Perplexity or not. And the cheapest decisive tests have to be about each of the main risks. And when I connected it, I was like, fuck yes, because I understood the cheapest, cheap tests are very important. This is what science is about. And yet I couldn't really implement it. And now I can implement because I really know how to implement main risk. It's like you have the main risk and you have the cheapest decisive test, and those two must connect. And you test the cheapest decisive test must be about the main risks, of course. Yeah, this was okay. Time, I'm worried. Okay, we're going to finish the rest in a different video. But the point is, it was such a big and important realization that I made the whole video about it. And it's just a genuine, serious improvement in my thinking. Whether it's doing a startup or some project, you want to list the main risks. And instead of doing a 2 weeks or 6 months, just find the cheapest fucking way to test each of those main risks and know exactly if you should continue working on the project or not. Yeah, and the rest in a second. We're back. So basically, the first was just connecting connecting the main risks to the cheapest decisive test idea was just like a bit of a euphoric realization. Like it was genuinely amazing because it's such a genuine improvement in thinking. I had the idea separately in my mind as kind of like a rule of thumb that you should worry about the main risk and try to kill them, and a rule of thumb that an important part of any scientific process or just any knowledge creation process, like generating knowledge of whether or not and generating a decision of whether or not you're continuing with the project, all of this should be connected to making to making first experiments, then making sure that those experiments actually tell you the necessary information of whether to go or not, whether to continue or not. So they must be decisive. They can't be about some random shit that doesn't help you whatsoever. And then realizing that you have to make them as cheap as possible. This is a very hard mental model to kind of implement. And then I realized that they are so perfectly connected. And Vinod talked about it so long ago, how you want to fail as fast as possible. And this is exactly kind of the thing. yeah, that was a big revelation. I was very happy about it, and one of the reasons why we're making this whole video and why I'm very proud and very happy with all those 4 days I've spent on this project. Um, and yeah, and basically, as you realize that any knowledge creation is about, it's just a basic scientific process of you have a problem, you make guesses, you try to criticize them, and then you analyze and decide what to do next. Well, the point of criticism is that most of ideas and why we as humans are so much more efficient and better than, let's say, evolution in progressing and getting things faster is because we don't have to test any of our, like, we don't have to test uh, kind of all of our ideas out there in the real life. We can quickly kill a shitload of them by just thinking about them and being like, yeah, they're bullshit. So we can move on. And just realizing that before doing any cheapest decisive test, you can just fucking think about it and be like, argue of like, oh yeah, this makes no sense. No need to implement it, right? Of like, I did not need to, well, I did implement the front end, but I did not need to implement it to be like, realize, well, I don't need it. I can just connect it to MCP and it will work just fine. So this was just a beautiful reminder of my kind of, maybe problem solving process, and really having it in my brain that I must have a goal after, or goal which can be seen, some problem. After we have some problem, we make guesses of how to solve it, then we criticize those guesses. Hopefully we can choose one in our head. If we cannot, then we can actually, advise reality on which one should we choose. And how do we do that? We list what are the main risks of the options, and we test specifically for those, which will tell us which option to choose. Let's say to work on the project or not. And cheapest test must be connected to decisive, to main risks. I just really felt it in this project, and I think this is awfully important and probably will make me a much better engineer, and just much improve my skill of just actually building much better and just executing, getting stuff done. So I'm very happy about it. Third one is, yeah, scoping and doing more research before heavily investing. As in, I could have spent right away, said, okay, we're doing this, we're spending 2 weeks, let's go. But because I kind of read shape up and I kind of understood it, but now I truly felt it, right? I felt it that I can just spend a few days kind of researching more about this project and seeing whether it works, what are my main worries about it. And boom, this is exactly what fucking happened. And I saved myself so much time. And fourth is that seize market opportunity ASAP. Basically, I had this idea 1.5 years ago. While Perplexity might have been already kind of good enough to quote Paul Graham in a reasonable manner, ChatGPT and Claude were nowhere near implementing a web search. The point is, if I implemented it 1.5 years ago, even in this bare bones way of MCPs, it would probably be a reasonable product that one can, share online and get some recognition for. The point is, I'm doing this right now, 1.5 years later, where the market opportunity is entirely not there. A ChatGPT search will do just as of a reasonable job as this whole MCP complex function does. And therefore, when you see the market opportunity, which I saw 1.5 years ago, you try to seize it as fast as possible. You do not wait for becoming good at web development and shit like this. Just get it as fast as possible. Market opportunities don't last long in any alive market. And yeah, certainly internet is a pretty alive market. And then kind of the realization that you must list what are the main risks of your options and of your guesses. And then the cheapest test idea is really about how do I, as cheaply as possibly, test those main risks, and the amount of creativity one can have, where you can have a 1,200x. That's fucking a lot. And like we go, and that's just because I worked 20 hours on it. But if from 1 minute we go to I worked 2 weeks on it, or some people, spend like this is a perfect product market fit search, where someone would make a perfect app, a shitload of, it's like hundreds of thousands of lines of code with all the details you can think of, and I actually go and ship it to the market, and market doesn't want it whatsoever. Like, it's 8 months of search, 8 months of work could have been tested as fast as a beautiful landing page. And just realizing how much creativity there is in how fast you can test things, and this is where a huge amount of gains are. Just realizing that this is a very important idea, and well, it's great that I applied it on this semi-random type of a project. How can I apply it to a bigger part of my life? Maybe I'm making some life philosophy, or how do I want to live a life, and like, well, what are the main risks of me of this guess, and how can I test it as cheaply as possible. Same can go with some of the bigger choices I'm making. Let's say work on longevity, or work on artificial intelligence, or say work on witchcraft I'm pursuing, longevity research or ML research, and so on. So really trying to stress test all the guesses I'm making much more seriously, with the main risks and with decisive tests. Yeah, I think this is a pretty significant improvement, and I feel pretty happy about it. And yeah, I think this will be the end of the this review. I hope you. I don't know if you find it useful or not, to be honest. But I think these are pretty important ideas, to be honest. And like just saying this out loud, that specifically, this is like connecting what are the main risks of your projects to what is the fastest way I can test each one of those main risks, is literally the main idea that Vinod Koshla talks about, and Kiefer Boy always repeats, of like how you want to structure your whole team and your whole startup and your raising rounds based on the risks you're solving. It's just such an important execution idea that I'm so happy I'm kind of feeling it and getting across for myself, and I hope it helps with you. And that's it. Don't build blog MCPs, or I guess find out about them as fast as possible, or when you see an opportunity, seize it as fast as possible. I think that's it. And yeah, have a good day. Cheers.